Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Casino Pete, and we're going to start getting ready for the Week 5 UFL picks. This past weekend, we did not do well. I went 6-6, 2-2 with the money lines, 2-2 with the over and unders, and 2-2 with against the spread. Was not a good weekend for me. Hopefully, you guys did better than me. I do try my best to give you an edge. And like I said from the very beginning and previous videos, when it comes to betting with the UFL, it's very unpredictable league. Lots of times these games are more defensive than offensive, and it's starting to show because the defense is always ahead of the offense when the season begins in leagues like this. There's also huge turnovers in coaching staffs, and we're seeing that recently these past couple of weekends. There was more this weekend due to one resignation, Ken Wisenhunt, replaced by Jim Turner of the Memphis Showboats. And then we had Peyton Pardee, finally got that name right, getting it wrong the previous weekend, taking over for Wade Phillips, who we believe is out on sick leave, as I was told. But anyways, certain players, again, new players are popping up everywhere. Prop betting is really bad in this league when it comes to passing yardage, taking certain players for touchdowns, yardage, and stuff like that. I try to stay away from that because in this league, they do a lot of rotation at the quarterback position. But anyway, I did my whiteboard already, so I'm going to post this up right now because I want you guys to take a good look at my whiteboard and what I'm going to predict for Week 5, and then I'll break it down for you guys, okay? This is my whiteboard for Week 5. If you guys want to write it down, take notes of it, whichever way you guys want to parlay with the money line this weekend, you can see my teams that I'm taking. Hopefully we could do well and better than last weekend. You can see the over and unders. You can also see against the spread. So we'll get back to this whiteboard in a sec. But anyway, it was really a crazy weekend. We saw an upset with San Antonio against the DC Defenders. Again, the inconsistency of the DC Defenders offense cost them at the end. Just wide open on number 12 from the DC Defenders in the last seconds of that game. And again, I always said it, the inconsistency of the quarterback play from Jordan Tayano, and missed him wide open as he was breaking to the out towards the post. I believe it was Roland, the receiver, and Tayano, I guess, feeling the pressure, overthrew it in the back of the end zone. He had him clearly wide open at the when he made his cut to the outside. Instead, he opted to throw down the middle, and that's how it ended for the DC Defenders. But it was a really, really poor showing for the defense. Really, really poor showing. San Antonio, good job. I believe it's Peyton Pardee who did a wonderful job of getting his team prepared against a tough DC Defenders team. I saw a better play at quarterback by Kellen Mond. Again, the offense is centered around Anthony McFarland. Wonderful punt return by Sexton there for San Antonio, and they just never looked back. It seemed like San Antonio was in total control in this game with their offense. There was a point where the DC Defenders were coming back in this game. In the beginning, it looked like quarterback Jordan Tayano was doing very well. And then towards the end, you saw the inconsistency cost them the game. So that was a little bit disappointing considering the way DC started the season 3-0 with some great victories against the defending champs, the Birmingham Stallions. And then I believe the last game was against the St. Louis Battlehawks. And in my opinion, I was thinking, hey, watch out. Shannon Harris, Coach of the Year. I still have him there, by the way. I'm sure he could rebound from that loss last night. But I also thought that the DC Defenders defense was where it's supposed to be, but they did not show up last night against a tough San Antonio team that really came out to play. And so moving on from that game, We also saw the St. Louis Battlehawks lose their starting quarterback Manny Wilkins to a serious injury in the beginning of that game, possibly cost them that game. Um, how significant is the injury going forward? We don't know. I don't have an update on yet, but from what I saw, he could be out for a significant long period. Max Duggan did come in, play significantly well towards the end. Through I don't know if I could really blame him on the slant, whether or not it bounced off the receiver into the hands of the defender from the Renegades, who I believe it's a UFL record coast to coast with the one, what was it, 100-yard interception to seal the game. But overall, Max Duggan will probably be the quarterback going forward. He's going to have to play a lot better than what he showed at the end of that game. But the Battlehawks fall to 2-2 because the Arlington Renegades came out and really their passing offense was really surprisingly good against the Battlehawks, and they came out smoking the Battlehawks, for in the first half there. It was at one point was 16-3 and really forced the Battlehawks to, without Manny Wilkins, to try to get back in this game. A Willie Harvey interception made it close. But in the end, the Renegades did enough to win this game. Also, we saw a poor showing of the Memphis Showboats against the Michigan Panthers. Again, Memphis with new coach Jim Turner. Now that Ken Whisenhunt has resigned, hopefully Whisenhunt is okay. But his resignation and Memphis was used to it because in week 2 they did not have Ken Whisenhunt as well. But anyway, moving forward, their offense continues to struggle. Just didn't see any pep from their offense. The defense also continues to struggle. Michigan, on the other hand, what a rushing performance by them. I think they had over, I'm not sure, either it was close to 200 or over 200. But I know Bryce Perkins had a good game. The receivers were great. The running game was awesome. And they were able to manhandle the Memphis Showboats there in that game. And finally, I think the other game that I wanted to get to was, let me see, I'm looking at my notes here. Sorry if I'm taking a long time getting to it. I think I pretty much covered all of them, right? The Stallions at Roughnecks was another game. Oh, there we go. There's my notes, right? Stallions at Roughnecks. Roughnecks came out and was pretty much hanging in there with the Birmingham Stallions. Good game. Surprisingly, it was close towards the end there. The quarterback for the Renegades got hurt, Nolan Henderson. Really the quarterback that came in for the Roughnecks. I'm trying to get his name. Oh my God, I cannot believe I'm having a brain fart right now. But he played very well. What a strong arm. Could really throw the deep ball. Has a lot of zip in his arm. Was moving the ball pretty much up and down the field against a tough Birmingham Stallions team. So that's something that you guys are going to really have to look forward to seeing from the Roughnecks, a better passing game now that this guy stepped in. This is like the third quarterback that I've seen that the Houston Roughnecks have gone to. But of the three, seems like this guy has it all together from the Roughnecks. He's got the arms, got the mobility. I don't see that I don't see that type of performance coming from Anthony Brown Jr. He might be demoted now to backup now that Nolan Henderson is out. I don't know if he's going to play next week, but Henderson getting hurt early in the game was disappointing. But anyway, that third string quarterback came in and played a hell of a game. I'm having a brain fart right now. I'm very sorry if I can't get his name. I know you guys probably know who I'm talking about. But Birmingham, Matt Corral came out, played well, pretty much was moving the team up and down. I saw a little bit of the running game. They still have to work on that, just like the DC Defenders. Those two teams really got to work it out in that running game if they're going to move on to better things. But Birmingham won. They move on to 3-1. Roughnecks continue to struggle. And right now, I think the worst teams right now in the league, I have to say, are the Memphis Showboats. Right behind them, I believe it's going to be the Roughnecks. And then a little bit above them, San Antonio finally climbed out of that cellar to make some noise. But listen, week five is going to be crazy too because according to my sheets, we got some matchups that are really crazy. And let's get to them because, again, I have it all written down on a whiteboard. And I did it in the beginning, guys, because, you know, I have a tendency to ramble on when I speak about the UFL. And I know you guys want to get to the picks real quick and run to the sports books or put it on your app. So I'm trying to do my best here. Sometimes I get brain farts as well, and also, I understand that betting in a league like this is very unpredictable. I tell you guys all the time when it comes to player props and stuff like that, I'm not really interested in it. As far as touchdowns by players, yeah, somewhat, because now I'm starting to really see that there's certain teams, like players that I picked that I know are going to be active, are really not, suiting up at times. We had that situation the weekend before with Deion Kane and his wife's pregnancy, the birth of his son. Congratulations, Deion. And also, we had certain teams that do rotational per quarter with players, and they could be at the goal line. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say if I took Deneric Prince of the Memphis Showboats to score around the goal line, he might have been replaced by another running back or something like that. So this is one of the reasons why I don't like player props in this league. When it comes to quarterbacks, that's even worse because, as we all know, when it comes to yardage, you cannot predict that. I mean, right now, the Spring King, Luis Perez, is probably the only guy that you could depend on playing the entire game. So far, that's what we've seen from them. As far as the Birmingham Stallions, injuries and stuff like that, Matt Corral so far is the second guy that you could probably depend on playing an entire game. And then now that injury with the St. Louis Battlehawks, Max Duggan coming in, before Manny Wilkins was good for the ground, getting one in the end zone rushing and throwing one. Now you don't know what you can get from Max Duggan other than throwing the football, and hopefully he's more consistent what he showed in that last game. San Antonio, Kellen Mond looked like he's coming out of his shell. Played a whole lot better against the DC defenders, surprisingly against that good defense. So he's starting to play well. And then Michigan also with Bryce Perkins doing very well. Memphis, two rotational at their quarterback with E.J. Perry and Troy Williams. They just got to figure it out over there. And now the Houston Roughnecks have a situation where they got a three quarterback head there with Anthony Brown Jr., Nolan Henderson, and now that new guy that stepped in. I'm sorry that I can't get his name. I had his name. I should have put his name down as notes. But he really showed me something. Came in the game, has a hell of an arm, has some zip, can be mobile, and looked like he could really move that offense very well. And he did it against a tough Birmingham defense. And this is why the picks for this weekend are going to look crazy, because right now you got the Memphis Showboats at the Stallions. We're taking the Stallions, right, as the money line. I just don't see Memphis winning this game. Again, what seems to be the short thing may not be the short thing. We certainly saw that with San Antonio against the DC Defenders. I had picked pretty much the Defenders all the way through, in a single game parlay, a 3-leg parlay, and they did not come through with me. I did take the plus when it came to the spread in that game, so at least San Antonio came through in that sense. But big letdown by DC. It's one of the reasons why I had a bad weekend in sports betting, and I'm sure a lot of you guys did also. But this weekend, week 5, I'm pretty positive you can money line the Stallions. As far as the over and the under, I just don't see offense coming out of Memphis. They're going to struggle again against this good defense. I'm going to take the under at 37.5. Combined points, it could come out to 37, like maybe a 27-10 game. but I'm taking the under. I don't see an over in this game, because the Stallions do struggle as well on offense. I just don't see this game going over 37.5, but be careful because if the over and under goes any bit less as the week goes on, you may want to stay away from the under. So be careful. If this goes down to 36.5, that's going to be kind of tough. If you want to stay away from it, that's fine. But money line the Stallions. And then the spread is going to be at minus 10.5. Is it too high? It might be, right? It might be too high, but do I see the Stallions maybe winning this game 23-10? Yes, right? I do see that. It could be a 23-13 game, so be careful. If you see the minus shoot up any higher, stay away, take the plus. If it goes to 11 or 11.5, take the plus. These games are, Vegas is kind of funny when they see games like this, right? They kind of tease you into taking it, right? They'll say, hey, you know what? Stallions defending champs. They're getting better offensively with Matt Corral, quarterback. The running game is starting to pick up a little bit of a pace. And they're just overall the better team. So it looks like a sure thing, right? Minus 10.5. You're going to bite, and then Vegas could really spoil it later on during the week. That's why you got to jump on these lines early, folks. This is one of the reasons why I post up early. As the minute I get those lines, I try to give them out to you guys, trying to give you the edge. And I know what I'm saying. As far as the Stallions for this game, that minus 10.5, it's a bit risky, but I'm going to take the minus 10.5 if it stays. Could this game be just a 10-point? Could the Stallions win this game by 10? Absolutely. But they need to get this game around 11 or above if you're going to take that minus 10.5. So be careful. Vegas will play games with you. If the line goes under, let's say 9.5, stay with it. Stay with the minus. Anything above 11.5, I would be a little scared about taking it because Memphis, despite their poor performance on offense, again, an unpredictable league. You don't know what's going to happen. The defense is always ahead of the offense in leagues like this. And I could see Memphis maybe hanging in there until the third quarter, and then maybe the Stallions. So far from what we've seen, the Stallions pulling out games towards the end. So even as minus 10.5, I'm not really safe with, but I'm taking it because it's at minus 10.5. If it goes higher, I might change it to plus. You heard it from me first. I might take it to plus if it goes higher, but I just don't see Memphis beating the Stallions. So if the safest bet right now is the money line on the Stallions, if you want to parlay that with the other games, that's fine. If you're going to parlay this game, like with the three legs of the money line over and the spread, I'm going to go Stallions money line, the under at 37.5, and the spread at minus 10.5. That's just me. I don't know if you guys going to agree with that or not. You guys got to choose. Safest thing right now is the Stallions on the money line, but you saw what happened with San Antonio against DC this weekend, right? I did not expect San Antonio to pull that off on the road in DC against a solid defensive unit. Did not expect San Antonio to play that well on offense. Great job by Peyton Pardee in that game. Anyway, the next game is going to be Michigan at St. Louis. This is a good game. This is a tough game, and this has to be a rebound game for St. Louis. They're going to have to, if they're going to make noise at the end of the year, this is the game they got to win. Michigan's a tough team. This is a tough game to pick. Of the games this weekend, I really love this matchup. This could be the game of the weekend. I always like to throw that out there to you guys, which game I think is going to play out the best. I think this is one of them. They're both good on defense, right? They're almost even out together on defense. They could really get after you on the defensive side, both teams. Offensively, if Manny Wilkins had not gotten injured and was healthy moving forward, I might have picked St. Louis to have the better offense. But now with that injury and what I saw from Max Duggan moving that offense. I'm not saying that they took a step back because remember, he got pressed into service as soon as Wilkins got hurt at the beginning of the game. And I gotta sort of like, in a way, say, it's kind of hard for a quarterback to go in there kind of cold after an injury. They do get the same practice reps, okay? But still, to get pressed into duty in a tough game that they had against Arlington, that was pretty rough, especially when they got behind so early in the game. But anyway, both teams I even out on the defensive side. This is why this game's -1. Okay, I do expect St. Louis to rebound. That's 2 consecutive losses. If they're going to be that team at the end, which everybody predicted, then they're going to have to win this game. They're going to be at home. They need this game. This is a must-win for St. Louis to stay on top in that division. So, they're battling DC there. DC took their first loss. This could be a good rebound for them. I'm looking at it that way. I'm giving them just a slight edge. I'm giving them the spread of -1. I'm moneyline St. Louis. I think this game's going to go over 37.5. Now, here's the difference. The edge rushers on Arlington, they're going to give that Michigan offensive line, which has struggled all year, although last weekend, but it was against the Memphis Showboats. Always keep that in mind. Trust what you see. It was against the Memphis Showboats, a really poor team. They ran that ball a lot, and they did well on the ground. Can they do that against St. Louis? Just sort of they could balance out that offense. If they do well to keep those edge rushers off of Bryce Perkins, then they have a great chance. But their offensive line doesn't give me that much confidence. They've struggled this year, and the edge rushers and the linebackers from St. Louis, that Willie Harvey's a hitter. Travis Feeney is a fantastic edge rusher. They do have some good edge rushers. So I'm going to give the slight edge defensively for St. Louis against that Michigan offense. That's why I'm taking the -1 and money line the St. Louis Battlehawks. I think it might be an over 37.5 on the over and unders. I'm taking the over because I feel like this game could be 27-24, 27-23, or just maybe one of those 23-21 games. So yeah, definitely take the over. How confident am I in taking the over? I'll tell you what, I could get surprised again. Again, unpredictable league. And for sports bettors out there, be cautious with some of these week 5 games, all right? Because week 4 tripped us all up. Week 4 taught me a big lesson of stop picking the favorites constantly on the money lines and thinking they're going to cover as well. I went 6-6, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, all across the board with the money line over and unders, as well as the spread. So, it taught me a very big lesson. But right now, St. Louis money line it. The over and under, I'm going with the over with the 37.5. And I'm going to take the spread of -1. If you're going to money line the Battlehawks, you take the -1. Does it end up 21-20? Could be. And it'll be again, I could see St. Louis winning by a touchdown or maybe a field goal, but it is going to be a good game. I like this matchup. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Let's move on. DC at Arlington. Oh, yet another game that could easily be game of the weekend, right? This could yet be another game that you have to say is definitely worth watching. Tough defensive units right here on both sides. Disappointed with DC's performance on the defense, allowing the big plays against the San Antonio Brahmas. The way they played against Kellen Mond, I told you on my previous video, I thought it was going to be some sort of a letdown game anyway, because I felt like, they're going to read their press clippings, right? Hey, DC defenders, great defense. They're looking like the team that might be in the championship game. And what do? They lay an egg against San Antonio. But can they rebound? This game could go either way. That's why I'm taking the +3.5 with the DC defenders, because I think if Arlington wins this game, and I am taking them as the money line. They are playing at Arlington. The Spring King, Luis Perez, continues to do well. He certainly showed up against the Battlehawks with that passing game. The receivers did very well against the Battlehawks. And Kalen Ballage, this is a Kalen Ballage type of game. A lot of screens, a lot of running up the middle, trying to keep that defense honest. And the edge rushes off of Luis Perez, as well as the blitz package. I'm going to take the over with that 39.5. As far as the money line, wow. I'm just going to slightly give Arlington the win because it's at Arlington. You got DC coming off a bad loss. They kind of, the inconsistency of Jordan Tayano at quarterback. Again, started the game well against San Antonio, as far as, they fell behind 12-zip. It looked like Jordan was bringing them back. He was playing a good game. They still struggle running the ball, although I saw a couple of big runs by Abram Smith. But I just don't see that against Arlington. I think Arlington's defense, they're very good in that secondary. Maybe a couple of big plays next weekend against Jordan will seal this game. As far as the over and under, the only reason I went with 39.5, when I saw the over and under, Vegas is probably going to want that money to roll on the under. And I just feel like, why do I get the sense that this game's going to be a damn shootout? That was what was running through my head. Sometimes Vegas puts out these numbers, and you say to yourself, geez, DC's got a good defense, a great defense, and Arlington's not that bad on defense. This could be a game that could go 9-6 at the end of the game. It could be a 6-6 game going into the fourth quarter. It could be 10-10 or 13-10 game at the end. But something tells me that both these offenses might get going in this game. This could be a crazy game as well. Maybe the game of the weekend as well. I don't feel safe with the trying to parlay or over and under or trying to pick an over and under in this. I chose the over. I could be wrong. In fact, I can honestly say I could easily went with the under because of their defenses, but I'm going to stick with the over. I'm expecting a shootout. I could be wrong, right? I mean, St. Louis and the Battlehawks against the Renegades this past weekend got up there 30-15. That's 45 points they combined. And in a game like this, where it's DC at Arlington, it can happen again. Right? So I'm going to take the over on this, 39.5. The spread, will Arlington win this game by 4? Possibly. But I just think DC's defense is going to keep them around. Maybe Arlington wins by 1 or 2. Could come down to a last-second field goal. But I'm going to stick with the plus. I'm taking plus 3.5 for DC against Arlington, but I'm going to money line Arlington. I'm going to take the over at 39.5, and I'm going to take the plus 3.5 for DC defenders to hang in there. I'm just not confident with the quarterback play of Jordan Tayano. What he did at the end of that game against San Antonio was mind-boggling. I understand that there's pressure that's going to be around you, but when it's the last play, when it's, first of all, that whole sequence, when it was like 1st and goal for DC defenders, I was sitting back saying, hey, I'm going to go 3-0 on my 3-leg parlay in this one, because here it is. They could tie the game. They have plenty of time. And the first 2 play calls were running plays. Listen, when it's 1st and goal, with seconds left on that play clock, they did have over, I believe, 40-plus seconds at that moment. I think every play should be towards the end zone, passing-wise, right? I didn't think San Antonio was really going to stay with the receivers that DC had, and they ran the ball the first 2 plays. Bad choice of play calling by the DC defenders, and I think that's the reason they lost. The first 2 running plays took away what they really should have done to end that game. And then you saw Roland, number 12, the receiver for DC, on the last play. It looked like he was going to cut in. He read the defense perfectly. He cut right back out to the post on and out. And why wide open. It looked like the safety and the corner all got baited by the other receiver going towards the middle of the end zone. And Tejano, I don't know. I didn't see that much pressure on him. I guess he panicked and just threw it towards that receiver out of the end zone when all he had to do was step up in the pocket. And then, it's easier said for me to say it because I'm a couch potato, right? It's easy for me to say, from what I saw. And he had Roland open. If he would have hit him, I believe DC would have pulled this game out. They had momentum, man. He overthrew it. Terrible, terrible ending to a game by a quarterback who was playing well up to that point. And, yet again, the inconsistency of quarterback Jordan Tejano. If there's something that's going to hold them back, it's going to be from the running game as well as the quarterback play. But right now, that could be the difference for them, whether they win the championship or whatnot. But again, it's the inconsistency that you get from him. Now, I'm gonna take Arlington, like I said, the over on the 39.5, and the spread plus 3.5 with the DC. And now the final game of this weekend, Houston at San Antonio. This is going to be a tough one for everybody sports betting. I love the way San Antonio played. I really do. I love the way they came out against DC, so I'm going to pick San Antonio as the money line. Houston continues to struggle offensively. The defense seems to, they do play well at times. They do keep their teams in games. So San Antonio might struggle a little bit, but I do see San Antonio winning this game. Peyton Pardee is certainly becoming one of my favorite coaches to watch. He knows how to center his offense around key players. Houston, the trade for Marcus Sims is starting to pay off a little bit. However, the quarterback play is what concerns me. We don't know who's going to start. The injury to Nolan Henderson forced the third stringer to come in, who looked fantastic. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind starting him against San Antonio this weekend. The guy's got an arm. He's got mobility. I think he's going to be a problem for that defense. I'm a money line San Antonio. The over and under is at 38.5. I'm going to take the under. And the reason for it is because I think both these teams are going to play tough towards the end. Probably a game that I see 20-17, something like that, right? 20-17. If this is also a risky over and under, because what if the game ends up 23-17, right? A game like that. Could it go over? It could. Like I said, 23-17, I'm looking for a score like that, or 20-17, which would make it under 38.5. I'm going to go with the under, although I saw San Antonio move that ball very well against a tough DC defender team. So it looks like they're breaking out. It looks like Peyton Pardee is having a lot of fun coaching, and he's enjoying it. I love the open mic they had on him this past weekend. That was awesome what he said about Mike Pereira on a call that went against him. That was awesome. But I'm going to put the plus 3.5 with the Houston Roughnecks. I think they'll keep this game close defensively. Again, the unpredictability of that quarterback play from the Houston Roughnecks. But I'll tell you what, from what I saw of them last week, they just might come out and play a lot better than expected. But I'm going to take that plus 1.5 with the Houston Roughnecks. But I'm taking a money line with San Antonio and taking the under. But don't sleep on Houston. Looks like they got a little bit better with the quarterback play, but I'm not sold on the coaching staff. Again, CJ Johnson, I'm sorry that I keep putting you under the bus like that. I think he's better off as an assistant coach. He's done it in the past. As far as head coaching material, he struggles at it. Maybe it's too much on a plate for him to handle. I don't know. Some coaches, even in the NFL, you see coaches that are great assistants, become head coaches and have no clue what they're doing, go back to being assistant coaches and do well. So maybe CJ ought to consider that for his future. That's not to say he's not a great coach. That just means he's great at other things he can do. When it comes to being an assistant, From according to what I looked up in his record, he's great as a receivers coach in the NFL. Maybe he needs to get back in the NFL and probably help some teams out there. But let me show you that whiteboard, and I already ran down what I thought about these upcoming games this weekend. Then I'll talk a little bit more. All right, there we are. Okay. On the money line, we're taking the Stallions, the Battlehawks, the Renegades, and San Antonio Brahmas this upcoming weekend. I feel safe about those teams winning this weekend. It's week 5. I hope we do better. As far as the unders and the overs, in the Stallions game, I'm going to take the under at 37.5. And I'm going to take them on a risky minus 10.5. If it goes higher, don't take it. I'm telling you now. If it goes lower, like 9 or 9.5, stay with the Stallions. It's a risk even at 10.5, but I'm rolling with it. It's an unpredictable league. In that second game, obviously the St. Louis Battlehawks, I'm going to money line it, but slightly. Okay, and I'm going to take that -1. I'm showing you there on that against the spread and on the over 37.5. I just believe this game is going to play out very well. As far as the game itself, let me just look at my notes again, right? They're playing the Renegades, okay? And they're gonna excuse me, not the Renegades. Why did I do that? I'm so sorry, people. Sometimes I get so caught up in the weekend before. No, obviously they're playing the Michigan Panthers, okay? I do make mistakes, folks. I'm not one to run away from it. But in this game, it's Michigan Panthers with that tough defense. This is why I'm taking the money line on St. Louis. I am going to take the over on the 37.5, but the -1 on St. Louis, that's quite obvious because I took St. Louis as the money line, which means they got to win this game by at least 3. Michigan's going to be a tough team, though. They got a good defense. The running game came around, but again, that slight edge is going to go to the Battlehawks defense because of the fact that the O-line for Michigan does struggle when it comes to passing. Bryce Perkins is going to have to use his legs in his game, but I see St. Louis pulling it out, especially after 2 consecutive losses. If they're going to be that team at the end, they're going to have to do something and win this game. The injury to Manny Wilkins is really tough to bear for St. Louis, but I think Max Duggan can get back to that Heisman form of weekend couple of seasons ago where he was a runner-up, and I think he could do very well and bring that attitude to the offense. Third game, obviously, we're money line the Renegades. We're going over the 39.5, and plus 3.5 is going to be with the DC Defenders. Yet again, another tough game. As far as the over and under, it's a risk. I'm just taking the over because I feel like I'm expecting a defensive game and then it ends up becoming a battle of offense. And a simple reason is that look at the way Vegas really messes with the sports bettors out there. 2 good defensive teams will be going at it, and 2 good teams are going to be going at it, and a tough game on top of it. And yet they put the over and under at 39.5. Do they know something I don't know? I don't know, but I'm going to take the over because if Vegas has it over, they're expecting this game to be what? 23-20, something like that. So I'm going to stick with it. You know, it is a risk. Like I say, you guys are better than me in parlaying and stuff like that. And I'm hoping you guys do well. This is the way I'm going with my parlays and my single units or whatnot. And the last game, obviously, is San Antonio. I'm a money line it with the under at 38.5. But I'm taking the plus 3.5 yet again in this game. And okay, let me put that board away. Again, that final game there, right? You got yourself the Houston Roughnecks at San Antonio, and of course, I'm going to money line San Antonio, especially the performance they put up against the DC Defenders. So, again, I did poorly this past weekend, all right, going 6-6. I hope you guys did better than me. I'm sure you did. And that's what I want to see. I'm just trying to give you guys an edge. I know what I saw this past weekend and previous weekends. As far as coaching changes, we all know what went on with the DC Defenders with their head coach, Reggie Barlow, being replaced by Shannon Harris because Barlow defected to college. to coach Tennessee State, Tennessee State University. And he took with him the defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, the following weeks from DC. His son continues to do very well with the DC Defenders defense, although this weekend he took a step back. The Defenders defense, too many penalties, stupid penalties on top of it, and it hurt them in the end. The secondary gave up too many big plays, and that was the reason why San Antonio came away victorious. But coming away from that weekend, there was a lot of upsets. St. Louis against the Renegades. I don't want to call it too much of an upset win, but it was crazy to watch that offense explode against the St. Louis Battlehawks. And that's one of the reasons why I'm taking the Renegades this weekend against the DC Defenders. So the two big games this weekend, obviously, DC Defenders at the Renegades, and you also have Michigan at St. Louis. Those are the two toughest games this weekend. The unpredictability of this league, the coaching turnover. Memphis also had a coaching change. Ken Whisenhunt resigning. Hopefully he's okay. Hope everything's well. We know that in San Antonio, Wade Phillips took a leave of absence. We hope he's doing well. Obviously, of the coaching changes, San Antonio, I think, well off with Peyton Pardee, who really knows what he's doing out there. I really like the way he's coaching. Certainly showed it against DC. With Memphis, Jim Turner, good coach, not a bad coach. People will run through walls for him, but I just don't think he's that far off from Ken Whisenhunt, but I also don't think he's in the same level as Ken Whisenhunt, and this is why, of the coaching changes, to me, Peyton Pardee has the edge on that. But again, looking at the schedule for this upcoming weekend, I showed you what I was taking. You just have to be really smart and understand that you're going to have to parlay the best way you can. Okay. I try to give you the picks up front this weekend, because doing it at the end of my YouTube channel, it kind of gets disappointing for a lot of guys that want to listen in, because, if you're a sports bettor, you want the picks up front. You don't want to watch a 1 hour video where the guy's going to ramble on about last weekend's game in order to come up with this weekend's games. So I did it up front, try to be fair. I'll ramble on afterwards. I'll do everything I can to give you guys an edge as well as give you insight. It's one of the reasons why I do ramble on my video. But hit that like and subscribe button too, because again, I got to see some feedback from you guys. I really do. I really want to hear from you guys. Other than that, I think we pretty much covered what we needed to do. As far as player props, I'm not big on it. I keep looking at my sports app as well as the sports books when I go, and I try to see where players are at. And some of it is like, they look so attainable, and yet players will either get rotated in and out. They don't reach the numbers that are being posted. Makes it hard for sports bettors to take player props. The easiest ones that I see a lot of sports bettors do is go with quarterback player props. And that's also bad. Look what happened with Manny Wilkins, right? He was up to that game against the Renegades. He was coming into that game having a hell of a year, and then he got hurt. Now he might be gone for a long period of time. So, and then in this league, they do a lot of rotational quarterbacks. I would not take any quarterback from the Houston Roughnecks. Seems like they rotate those quarterbacks every play, every quarter, whatnot. So far, the best of the three turned up. The third stringer turned up this past weekend, and he had a hell of a game. What an arm and a mobility. Looks like he had command of that offense. And I would put Nolan Henderson behind him, followed by Anthony Brown Jr. So I wouldn't pick any of those quarterbacks. Rushing games. First weekend, I thought Kalen Ballage was the man. Turns out that the Arlington Renegades are now getting away a little bit from the running game. They kind of sort of got back into it. So, Kalen Ballage, great talent. Anthony McFarland, great talent for the Brahmas. Abram Smith, great talent as well. But these guys don't get the ball enough. And that's my problem with picking player props. Same could be said for Michigan, right? Now they're doing a rotational thing back there, right? We saw one guy get hurt, Colburn, right? Matthew Colburn got hurt. Looked like he was going to be something special for them, and then he got hurt. I don't know how long he's out. Nate McCrary continues to do well around the end zone, does get big yardage every now and then. And they got another young Samoan back there, right? I believe he's a Samoan, right? I believe his name is Tua Taufa. I don't know if I'm, please, I'm not here to disrespect player names or anything. I do struggle with them, but he's a good running back. They do rotate there as well. They had a lot of rushing yards this past weekend, but it's not going to translate for player props. As far as touchdown passes, let's continue to player props. With receivers, the same thing. I wouldn't trust receivers getting a lot of yardage in any of these games, and just like the running backs, you very inconsistent league, unpredictable. And then when it comes to quarterbacks, the only thing I can say is touchdown passes. If there's any player props you want to take, touchdown passes, whether it's one or two. Matt Corral's good for one. I'm going to go down the list. Matt Corral is good for one this weekend. Bryce Perkins is good for one this weekend, as well as Max Duggan. Jordan Tayano, despite his inconsistency, seems to throw at least one touchdown every weekend. Also rushes in one touchdown every weekend as well. Arlington Luis Perez, the Spring King, continues to be consistent. I think he's good for a touchdown. Houston Roughnecks, I don't know what you're going to get from those quarterbacks. Stay away. San Antonio Brahmas, Kellen Mond, I think he's good for a touchdown. So if I was going to do a parlay of players for touchdowns, may not pay well, I just go straight to the quarterbacks. Running backs, I would go with maybe Kalen Ballage, right? Deneric Prince from Memphis. Nate McCrary from Michigan Panthers, as well as the quarterback, Bryce Perkins, who's mobile. Jacob Salas, how could we forget him, right? He was good for 3 touchdowns one weekend. Like to see him get back in the end zone. He's due for one, so I would take him. DC, you want to go with their receivers. Maybe Ty Scott. Maybe around the end zone. Maybe Jordan Tayano rushing one in as well. Arlington, we spoke about Kalen Ballage, Luis Perez being good for one. Roughnecks, boy, I like the running of Saquandre White, but he's light on his ass. I'm not so sure if he's going to be bullish around the goal line. But I like that new quarterback they put in on the third stringer. Played very well. He might be good for one touchdown, either rushing or passing. San Antonio, I like, obviously, Kellen Mond. Anthony McFarland's good for at least one, right? It's funny. I don't see him, when it comes to near the goal line. They did have that new guy that they brought in this past weekend yet again. I believe his last name is Robbins. I think he had 2 of them this past weekend. Maybe he's the guy they go with around the goal line. But Anthony McFarland, if he breaks one, he's good for one. And Kellen Mond, other than that, I stay away from players and player props. I just stick to who's going to score touchdowns, pretty much. Again, I gave you my picks. Hopefully they do well this weekend. And hopefully for everyone out there does better than what I did this past weekend, going 6-6. But again, it's hard to bet in any league, whether it's NFL, UFL, college football. I just stick with football. I don't do baseball. I don't do basketball, golf, tennis. I know there's a lot of people out there that have a tendency to bet on everything on their sports app and stuff. But my advice to you in leagues like this, I did a video on it with Can You Bet on the UFL? And I'm sure some of you guys saw it. If not, please look into it. Look back at that video because it's the unpredictability, too much player turnover, as well as coaches turnover. Just too much of that going on. The rotation at quarterbacks. remember, the spring league is almost like a developmental league for a lot of players to get back into the NFL. So it makes it hard to bet on these guys. Um, but if I have one advice to give everybody, and I say this on every video, don't gamble. Okay. Um, I would prefer you guys don't do any of that stuff. It ruins lives. You could get hooked. You could get addicted really badly. Um, it's not worth it to wreck your life or your family's life or whatever. It's just not worth it. Also, bet with money you can lose with. Okay, don't bet with money you need. Bet with money you don't need. Fun money, a fun account, a savings account that you might have, because you're going to start chasing that money. Do not martingale. Do not do any of that. Do not even parlay. I'm doing parlays, but I do it for fun, for entertainment purposes. In all honesty, I would not parlay anything. Okay, that's a sports bettor's Bible. Because if you lose one part of that parlay, you lose the entire ticket. But if you bet small like I do to win big, you may want to take a chance at a parlay. Okay, I bet small to win big. I play with fun money. I play with money that I don't need to pay bills with. All right. If you're a first-time sports bettor, I prefer you get rocked. I prefer that you lose coming out. You know why? Because you're not going to win all the time in sports betting. That's so hard. I hate people that say that, oh, I win 70% of the time. That's just bullshit. There are some great sports bettors that made careers in this and have done well in every sport, and they win, 52 to 57% of the time. Okay, the greatest one, I think, trying to get his name, you could watch him on VSiN. They have a book on the guy. Oh my God, he's one of the best ever. And he was at 57%. And he gives you some great tips too on how to sports bet. I hate people that you have to pay to sports bet. You don't need to do that. You don't need to throw your money to somebody to bet for you. You could do that on your own. This is why I'm trying to teach you and bring you in on this. Now, do those guys win? Yeah, they win every now and then. I'm not disputing anything they do. The only thing I don't like is when you get an amateur sports bettor and he wants to win something big and he goes, you know what? I got $20,000 in my pocket. I'm going to go bet on such and such. I'm going to pay him so that he could split my money in different ways so I can win big. Don't do it. You could do that on your own and figure it out how bad it's going to look when you lose. Okay, just don't do it. I advise anybody out there when it comes to sports betting, just don't do it. Just don't gamble, period. But I'm a sports bettor. I entertain myself. I have fun, but I do it with money I don't need. Okay, this is the way I've been playing in casinos my entire life. And I could certainly hope that you guys do the same thing the way I do it. Just play for fun. Entertain yourself. Enjoy it. Hang out. Enjoy the games. Have a frosty brew beverage while you're at it. Okay, but that's the world of sports betting, folks. I'm just hoping that this past weekend was just a blip. All right. I hope I can do better this next weekend coming up. I hope everybody makes some money this upcoming weekend, week 5 of the UFL. I see some good quality football. I've seen some bad quality football as well as bad coaching. I've seen some dumb plays, stupid plays by players. It's why they're in the UFL, so they could get better. The attendance, we could still get better at it. St. Louis, Arlington's getting better at it. DC Defenders and St. Louis still lead the league in more fans at games. Memphis is getting better at it. Birmingham, you guys got to improve, man. You got a championship quality team. You got to start showing up to your stadiums, man. I hate when the film crew for these games, when they show flashes of the stadium and you see empty seats. That really bothers me a lot. I really want this league to continue and grow. It's a great spring league. I'm sure we can do a whole lot better. But guys, let's start showing up to these games, right? They make it affordable for families, right? And, it's It's less money than what you would pay going to an NFL game. And some of these players are coming from the NFL due to injuries or lack of playing time, or perhaps they just not at that level yet. They come into this league to get back to the NFL. So, give them some props, not like, show them a little bit of respect. Stop saying that this league is not worth watching. It's terrible when I hear people, especially when I'm at casinos and people are walking around saying, I'm not going to watch this game. It's garbage. You know what's garbage? People that don't understand leagues like this. You know what's garbage? Fans that think the NFL is the prize thing. Listen, we all grew up watching the NFL. And you know what league almost took them down had they stayed in the spring? The USFL. If it wasn't for Donald Trump trying to threaten the NFL by switching from the spring to the fall, the USFL will still be going. And guess what? They would have hurt the NFL because they had their own type of draft where they were getting some quality players. Remember Jim Kelly? Remember Reggie White? Remember Anthony Carter? Remember all those great players, Herschel Walker? How did that turn out for them in the NFL, right? They had those guys first. They even had Steve Young. Remember that? So the USFL was a spring league that if they had stayed in the spring, and they were getting a lot of fans back then, had they stayed in the spring, I guarantee you we still be talking about or watching the USFL today. Might have even expanded. They might have even challenged for ratings between both leagues. As far as the spring league would have went, they would have been the number one thing to watch. They probably would have been better than watching baseball or basketball. I'm just throwing that out there because the reality of it was the USFL was looking great. Did they have financial problems? Yes. But Donald Trump challenging the NFL, that was stupid on his part. I'm sorry to say, but even though he's the president of the United States right now, he was pretty stupid back then when it came to the USFL. He really wrecked that league all by himself. And there's a documentary on it. If you think I'm bullshitting, just go to it. But the USFL was one hell of a league. And the UFL, they could be that type of league again. All they need to do is expand a couple of more cities, get more revenue, get a little bit more help from college. Maybe perhaps expanding the league schedule. It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt. And also, maybe adding, maybe more fans going to the game. Maybe that might help. And again, this is the end of the video where I could, talk to you guys about how I feel and what I'm seeing out there. But again, UFL has some promise. I don't want to hear people walking around me or walking by me telling me, hey, you're Casino Pete, right? Yeah, you're doing those UFL picks? Yeah. Why? Well, why are you getting involved in that? It's a shit league. And that's what they tell me. I got to tell you guys, man, it's disrespectful to say that about any league. These players get my respect. I played college football, okay? I played high school football. That's tough to do, man. I played against guys that busted my ass every day in practice and during games. I was a third stringer on a team in junior college where two of my teammates went to the NFL. Rest in peace, Sean Lee of the San Diego Chargers. He was one of my teammates. And let me tell you something, at 6'4", 290, he was playing middle linebacker for us. I was a third string linebacker as well as a third string defensive end. I was like a hybrid. I wasn't tall. I was 5'11". At the time, I was a little bit chubbier. Didn't really have my nutrition down right. But I was a third stringer. It was tough. I started in high school, but when I got to junior college, that's a whole different ballgame. Imagine what these guys are going through. Mad respect for these guys. Mad respect for even going to an inferior league that people think they are to try to get their careers back into the NFL. Mad respect. These guys are busting their ass. They have a life. They're doing everything. They're not out there doing stupid shit. They haven't given up on their dream. So be respectful when you walk around and you say things like that. You never know who you might run into also. I've run into some UFL players from the past. I've run into NFL players from the past. And believe me, they don't like to hear that either. These people get my mad respect, and the coaches as well. and the people that work behind the scenes to put this league together. So I'm very thankful that we have a spring league, and I hope you guys are too. So listen, I could ramble on for hours. I would love to do that, but I don't want to waste any more of your time. This was about the week 5 picks. I give it to you every weekend for free, no charge. You don't have to come looking me up and mailing me money or whatnot, opening up envelopes full of money so that I can bet for you. You could do that on your own. All right. You got the internet, you got your sports app, you got your local casinos with the sports books where you could place your bets. You know, don't go to the extreme. Don't be betting too big to win big. This is a league to have fun. Remember, we're still going to do the NFL too in the fall. Okay, so have fun this spring. Enjoy these leagues. And just have fun. Have fun when you're out there. Anyway, hit that like and subscribe button. Would love to hear your feedback. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. It's really important, whether it's bad or good, to hear from you. It really is. It's important. And I thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Thank you, and good luck this weekend. I hope I did enough for you guys to win. Thank you.